Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third webinar in a series of six. Today's program is called the Inclusive Agro-Ecological Practices for Women and Youth. My name is Geert van der Meer. I'm a regenerative agricultural expert at reNature, based in the Netherlands. And reNature connects farmers with research, knowledge, and funding to help them to transit to regenerative agriculture instead of conventional farming. It will be nice if everybody can shortly introduce themselves in the chat, only in the chat, so not over the mic. So for today's webinar, it will be recorded as announced in the program invitation. And today I'm the webinar, so I'm the moderator, and I will be the timekeeper of this webinar. It's an honor to have the speakers from IUCN, who will present the basic principles of how to integrate women and youth with a case study in Uganda. Second, the Partners for Innovation. They will showcase a study in Niger. And third, Word and That, about employment and training of youth in Chad, with a lot of beautiful pictures. The goal of the webinar is to enhance and also share knowledge on inclusive agro-ecological practices for women and youth. So it's also to share knowledge. So speakers can open up over the chat, but also they can question the speakers after their presentation. Um, Only a few answers can be answered, but there is an opportunity to also send an email to the presenters if your question is not being answered. When questioning to the presenter, please rename yourself, give the title and your company. And the other house rule is to please mute your mic during the presentations. This webinar is organized by Ben Sonneveld and reNature, IUCN, and the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. And I would like to give the floor to Anna to welcome us from RVO.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Anne from RVO. On behalf of RVO, welcome to this webinar of the SDGP Knowledge Exchange Series, now focusing on inclusive agroecological practices for women and youth. We're so happy to see so many of you joining here from across the globe. It's really good to see. Welcome to our SDGP partners from different sectors, as well as other participants joining this session. I'd like to also give a special thank you to our speakers who are shortly going to share some valuable insights and experiences with us today. And of course, a big thank you also to our organizers from IUCN, reNature, and VU Amsterdam for making this webinar possible. And overall, I hope you will find today's webinar insightful and inspiring. Perhaps you're going to bring some practical knowledge or tools with you that you yourself can apply to your own work. So I say, I think we should start soon, and I hope you'll enjoy the session.
Yes, thank you, Anna. So to get excited, we would like to start with a short poll um, to have an overview at the end of this presentation of what you think about the subject. So, Max, can you start this poll questions?
Thanks. We're going to skip the poll for now.
Oh, okay. So the first presenter is Frederik Holle from IUCN.
Yes, thank you, Geert. Hello, everyone. I am Frederique Holly. I work for IUCN NL, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, Committee of the Netherlands. We work in several landscapes across the globe, mostly with local partner organizations, conservation organizations, indigenous people groups, feminist networks, to ensure people and nature live in harmony. I'm an anthropologist by background, and so I'm looking at conservation efforts through a social perspective, and I'm looking especially at gender justice. So, next slide, please. Today, I'll take you through a few issues, and we'll first start off with some basic concepts around gender, intersectionality, power. And then I'll explain why inclusivity matters, and how to do this. And finally, I will share a very inspirational case from Uganda with you all. And today, I would say this topic is extra important also with the new policy brief that is being presented in the Netherlands today, where it was indicated that projects on women's rights will be stopped. So I really want to stress how important this topic is. So all right, so some basic concepts. Understanding gender versus sex. So sex indicates really the biological differences. So it's about being male, female, intersex. Whereas gender is about constructed roles. So it's behaviors, expectations. They are not fixed. They change over time. And there's something fluid. And Max, can you press enter a few times so we get the text as well? Thanks. So it's like I say, they're not fixed gender, and it's these concepts like boys don't cry, for instance. And why it matters is because it's about questions: who inherits the land, who sits at the table during community meetings, and who decide what's going to happen with the crops, or when are they being grown, or what is being grown, but also who earns the money or the monetary benefits from the profits of the land. So these questions, they're all sort of embedded in who has the power, who decides, and who has which kind of opportunities. Next slide, please. As I said, it's all about power. We all have different identities. So we have a gender, we have a skin color, we have a certain level of education. We are a certain age. We come from the city center or from a rural area. And all these identities, they are sort of stacked, and they show a status. And so in this, on the right, you see this figure, the wheel of power and privilege. And you see that certain qualities somehow are seen in many places, and often these the status is decided because of the colonial past that happened. That we see there are certain status which is higher ranked or lower ranked. So people are either more empowered or more marginalized. And Max, if you can press enter, then you see a second figure. So it's not about just one identity, but it's about how these different identities intersect and how they even sort of on the picture, you see the balloons. You know, if you have more balloons, you're going up the ladder, higher up the social status ladder. Or if you have certain qualities that are ranked lower, people are more marginalized. So that really shows how the combination of identities someone has are usually deciding what kind of power you have. And again, also with the policy brief that was presented today, but also in our time of Trump and Musk, really depicting the fighting the war against woke. It's really important that we spend time and think about these kind of issues and privileges and opportunities people have. Next slide, please. These terms, equality and equity, they sound very similar, but the implementation leads to very different outcomes. So if you look at equality, you see people are given the same kind of resources or opportunities. But if you look at equity, it's not about the resource, but it's about the outcome. So what does someone really need to reach an equal outcome? So that's the big difference between equality and equity. Next slide, please. So I loaded some nice footage, but I was a bit too optimistic with the quality. So you'll see a lot of hampering in the video, but they were supposed to be very nice videos for you. Anyway, Why does it matter? Maybe Max, you can add a few enters. Because there's a very obvious link between gender, climate, and the environment. If you look at climate change, women are often part of the poorest of the poor, and therefore they are very vulnerable and more prone to certain kinds of climate disasters. Same goes about nature. Women have specific roles. So men and women use natural resources differently. So they're affected differently by the changes to these resources. So often roles are dependent on gender and how they're filled in. So often women collect water, for instance, or they collect fuel wood, or they're part of the subsistence farming. So every change in their environment has a big impact on being able to bring these resources to the household. So whether it's about water or food or fuel wood, it's really there's this close link, and that's why it's really important to also consider gender within agroforestry practices. Because it's about access to land, control over land, control over productive assets and resources. So we really need to consider this in our projects and not be gender blind within these projects. Next slide, please. And of course, inclusive approaches lead to better environmental and social outcomes. So it's about justice, of course, but it's also about leading to better outcomes. And what you see is because of certain roles and assigned responsibilities, you see women often lack access to land or to credit. Very important. They often can't get loans by a bank, or they don't get access to training or to decision-making roles. So they're often excluded from forest governance committees, and then decisions are being taken over the land where they collect their herbs or where they get their water, and they're not being part of decisions making being made on the places where they come to collect. Traditional norms may limit women's participation in agroforestry programs, and therefore it is really important to recognize the barriers that create equitable solutions. So on the next slide, there's a figure where you see some barriers experienced by women. This is, of course, not a complete picture. But you often see that women are not allowed or too shy to speak in mixed groups. Or a very important one, they have a lot of household tasks for childcare or for household or for cooking. Or they don't have enough funds to travel to a project site or where to go. So there are a lot of barriers that keep women or keep youth from being excluded. And safety, of course, is also a very important issue, being out in the dark or not. So those are very important barriers. So then the question how to ensure inclusive agroforestry practices come up. And if you look at my next slide, you see it actually all comes down to doing a really good power and gender analysis at the start of a project. Really knowing what are the needs, what are the roles, what are the responsibilities assigned to the different groups, not only to women, but also to men and also to all groups within the community. And then it's really important to really integrate gender and youth in the full program cycle. So really start by the design phase, in the budgeting, in the PML, so make sure you have disaggregated data, but also in the lessons learned, being aware of what kind of impact does your project have. You know, is there a backlash? For instance, you see once money comes into the household, there can be an increase in gender-based violence. Are you aware of the impact of the project and the intervention? So that those are all very important points to completely integrate into a program cycle. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a picture of how to integrate, how to look at your program and where to, really make sure in your objectives, in your activities to have, gender specific or youth specific activities implemented. I'm not going to go through this picture because it's a bit of a long story, so I'll skip through. But if you later on want to look into the PowerPoint, you can see how to integrate per step. How to integrate gender and youth. At the end of my PowerPoint, I'll also share some resources so you can also check out some of those links I'm referring to. Next slide, please. Gender Action Learning System. So now we're coming to the very inspirational part. GALS. It's a tool which is organized by Oxfam. And our partners in Uganda, they started using GALS a couple years ago, and they said it was a complete game changer in the way they work with the communities. They now use it for every plan, for every project they start up. They always start with GALS methodology. So if we move to a next slide. This is a picture of Uganda. On the left side, you see the country, and encircled is this area. So on top, which falls outside of the figure, is Murchison Falls, and below you have Budongo Forest. And the whole area up to Bugoma Forest in the southern part, it all used to be forest a long time ago. And it was completely deforested in the last couple of years. EcoTrust vision is really to restore that corridor. So every project, everything they do is sort of in that line to connect these forests back again, to create a chimp corridor, but of course many species that they profit from the restoration of that corridor. So they're working with a lot of smallholders because it was deforested for smallholders, but also sugarcane that came into the area. And so EcoTrust is working with many households through, for instance, coming up with conservation agreements. So to make sure that part of the land of these communities that falls within that corridor, that through these conservation agreements, it's being decided, what do they grow? When do they harvest, if they're going to harvest at all, or if they're just going to leave a part of their plot, let it grow back. What are they going to plant? Is it native or are they exotics? And to really make sure that together with these communities, that corridor function can be restored. So on the GALS principle, next slide, please. Yeah, the GALS principles, everything is community-led. And that proved to be really the game changer, because instead of thinking, okay, we want to start this corridor, it was really, okay, working from the needs of the community. So not the project goals first, but what do they want? What do they need? And then how can we, combine that? So they have a lot of buy-in from people, and there is a lot of commitment because it's not only for the project, but it's because of their benefit as well. So you see with this buy-in. So it's also household methodology. So it's not only working with men, but also with women, of course, and youth. And it's really involving the whole community, but also at household level. So it's a planning tool. So it's also about the vision, where do we get money from? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? If you click a next enter, Max, there's a picture of what it looks like. because it means that within the household, they have discussions on budgets. They have discussions. No, go back one slide. There's a picture over the picture. It's about discussions on income. It's about where is the income being spent on. It's about a long-term vision. Where are you working towards? So that really proved to help within the household as well, and reduce gender-based violence was one of the outcomes. Again, it's a participatory process, so everyone is involved. And what is really nice, and if Max, if you can try to go back that slide, there's this picture, and you see the vision, and it's all in pictures. So even if people are illiterate, yeah, exactly. If they cannot read, they see, what the long-term vision is, where are they now, and what steps to take, and what are the opportunities along the road. So it's for everyone, clear, visible, yeah, to see where to go and how to get there. So, and the GALS methodology has several different kind of tools they can use. This is the Vision Road Journey, but there's also this equality tree where you see who has what kind of resources. There are so many different kind of tools that the GALS methodology applies that are very worthwhile to get people together and for joint planning and joint working and having gender and youth and everyone sort of included in the process. And then my final slide. So here is, I added some links to some resources. So one is a story on the work in Uganda, which is super inspirational. So I can really recommend to read it. Also a link to how do you do a power analysis developed by Oxfam and the GALS toolbox if you're interested in reading more about GALS. Again, I can really recommend it because it really proved to be a game changer. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Frederica. It's very nice to get more better idea of the girls' principles. So if anybody has a question right now, please raise your hand and open up your mic. But I also have already one question. Um, I was wondering, in the project, it can be quite difficult to reach out to women. Um, Also for the efforts, how to get them on board or even speak out during such a project in Uganda. Could you share some examples of how your partners did that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Geert. Indeed, so we found out in several projects that sometimes even despite making really efforts, it can be difficult to reach out indeed to women or to youth. So in that sense, that power analysis could be a powerful tool for that to find out, because yeah, like I said, there are so many barriers for women also to join. So if you're not coming at the right time when they're, in the woods collecting firewood, or if they're collecting water, or if they're cooking, or, so you really need to know when to come with the project. Be aware of their schedule, of course, but it can also be, limitation of funds. Can they come to where you agree to meet? Do they have resources to get there or not? It's sometimes it helps if you also have a woman or meet with women groups only to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable and are able to speak out. So there are so many things, and it's the key is to really identify these barriers, and
Yeah.
it might take time. So it's also about relation. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And talking about these relations, how are the cultural aspects embedded and the traditions embedded in such approaches?
Yeah, so that's why, for instance, GALS is such a powerful tool. It really works bottom up, but it also really looks so when looking at gender, these are usually very long-term processes, right? And you don't want to top down, we with our Western view impose our gender relations there. It's important, of course, to, stick to what's going on, but also to really look at those rights of women. So we usually work with women groups, for instance. So it's really more of in that sense, bottom-up approach, and they slowly, have these awareness meetings. They also engage men and men's groups. They sort of show uh, through, even drawing in the sand, like who has access to this land, who has access to these resources. So really by showing what is now and why is this the case actually, and by, for instance, inviting people from the government who read out loud that men and women have equal rights, but how come, culturally speaking, women are not allowed to come here? So it's these kind of different, actions that can be used, but of course these are very long-term processes, and so it's about having a long breath.
Yes. Small steps for
Exactly,
a big change. Yes.
exactly.
Okay. Um, just looking if there's anybody else who has a question. If not, nobody's opening. Okay, Eric, please open up your mic and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm Eric Kataka, uh, joining in from Kenya. Um, particularly interested in this topic because this is what I'm studying for my PhD. I'm a current PhD student in gender and development studies. And I like the presentation as what has been presented by Frederick. Sorry for maybe if I mispronounced your name. So I just wanted to know what is your take with the current what the president of USA, Trump, declared that he only recognizes two genders, that's male and female. And yet, we know in the current society, we are not only aligned to the two genders. Of course, that's my opinion. Because we have issues to do with the intersect, we have to do issues to do with the non-binary identities, and so many other identities. So that when you just focus on these two sex, male and female, we are not going, it will take us a long time to realize the inclusivity that we are all of us agitating for when we are implementing and designing projects. So I just want to see your take and how we can work together towards making sure that we embrace inclusivity beyond just the two gender of male and female. Thank you.
You, Eric, for this very important point. And you see indeed worldwide that there is such a, of course, war on these issues. And I think it's very dangerous what Trump now is saying. And he's really, for people with intersex identities are really pushing their rights. And it's dangerous. So I hope this really, and especially at that level with so many people listening to what he's saying, so this really emboldens a lot of other people. So I also hope that this brings other people, that we really know that we stand up for our rights, and make sure that we, also keep telling and the other story and pushing for rights of everyone. So, yeah, thank you so much, Eric. Victor.
Yes, thank you. Victor is the last
Hi there.
question.
Thanks. I have a question related to women's role within agro-ecological farming, and there are many overlaps that you can think of. But I'm wondering, sometimes I run into a tricky situation. For example, when you consider what is like a traditional women's role in some of these systems, it could be like gathering firewood, which can be improved with agroforestry. It can be something like diversification cropping on a farm, which can help them with their more traditional role of like helping a household have nutritious food, etc. And then you can help a lot, like in a very practical, concrete way. Like if you do agroforestry, maybe the gathering of firewood will take whatever, like 30 minutes instead of 3 hours a day or so. So it's like really practical help, and it might come up through like a bottom-up process that this is one of their priorities. But at the same time, if you do that, you sort of entrench those traditional roles as well. That you say like, yes, it is indeed the women's role to gather the firewood. Yes, it is indeed their role to, to help make sure that the family has access to different kinds of nutritious foods, etc. And they do the secondary crops instead of the primary. So I then wonder sort of what would be some of the recommendations to such conflicting situations where you have like the short-term practical real help and sort of the long-term perhaps entrenching of traditional roles.
Thank you, Victor, also for this interesting question. And indeed, but I think, in that sense, it's not about who does what role, but it's about who decides, what role is. So it's about the question behind the question, and it's about equal benefits, and it's about having access over control. So it's yeah, I would say it's more about who decides which role or responsibility a person has, instead of the actual responsibility itself. Does that help?
I think so. I think that's a really good answer. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. So I think now we can go to the next presenter. Raikutu, are you here?
Hello.
Hello. Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, the next presentation will be a case study in Niger. Raikutu, please take over.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So this is Rakiatou Gazibo from Partners for Innovation speaking. I must be with my colleague Asare Sabine, who is the gender expert, but unfortunately she can't reach the meeting due to connection issues. So our presentation will be on gender, climate change, and biodiversity in SDG project in Niger. The next slide, please. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. So the plan is to explain why SDGP project in Niger and the context of the study, the climate change and biodiversity in SDG project, climate change actions, and also how gender versus climate change is being taken account with women, youth, and at the seventh point, a business case to explain a case of women dealing with climate change, and we will go to the conclusion. Next slide, please. Please enter. Yeah. So in our case in Niger, it's not a project that we are sharing, but it's two studies that we make on 3 projects in Niger. So we have the cluster horticulture project, which is on how to promote a horticultural project in Niger. A Shan Booster project around how tiger nut can be an inclusive value chain, and also how groundnut can be a inclusive value chain. So with these 3 projects, we get funds to make 2 studies. The one study is on climate change and the biodiversity. The second one is on the gender and social inclusion. So the aim is really to see how through these 3 projects, gender, especially women and youth, are taking account climate change and biodiversity in their daily work. Enter, please. So the focus will be on what youth and women are doing in the way of empowerment, but also versus the climate change, how gender and social inclusion are being addressed in the 3 projects, how we can integrate gender and climate change in the tree project. So we go to this because in the project that we are running, we saw that gender, especially women, are very involved in the process, the conservation, and also a marketing of product, while they are dealing with climate change, and it's not very showed in the project. So this is why we go to those studies, and in the studies, when you go to the figure that is on the slide, we can show that the perception of the vulnerability of population to climate change issues, the perception of women is very grow. It's really more than the man's one. So it shows that women are very concerned about climate change issues. For the youth, it's there, but one aspect that the studies highlight, it's because of their age. Let's say because they are young, it's difficult for them to explain how they see the evolution of the climate, the evolution of the biodiversity, and make the link between the two, the dispersion, for example, of the biodiversities, which is linked to the climate change effects. The next slide, please. Hello, next slide, please. Yeah, can you enter, please? So what the studies shows, it's also how to highlight the big or the most practices that are being taken with the project beneficiaries to take account climate change and biodiversity. So we try to highlight some actions and practices. So the list is long, but the big one is really the community mobilization. So we saw in the project that really at the community level, there are actions that are being are taken account to show how climate change is an issue, and how at the community level they can mobilize themselves to tackle it. We saw also that information and education campaign on awareness, climate change workshop and training to encourage communities to adapt is really a kind of reality in the context of the tree project. We saw that planting tree, reforestation, and agroforestry are also a big issue, especially because some politics are pushing on that. Advocacy also is very important in the tree project. And when you go to the pictures, sorry, I see now that it's really slow. You can see that we have tried to make a kind of inventory of all the practices that are being implemented by the beneficiaries of the tree projects on the ground. Then we know the knowledge also on climate change and biodiversity is really there. So the figure shows that how women are aware, youth are aware, men are aware, but sometimes in taking actions, it becomes another way, or it becomes difficult. So we will see it later. The next slide, please. I hope that my English is okay for everybody.
It is, of course.
Okay. Next, please. So from the introduction I made with the previous slide, we go through how women are dealing with climate change through nature-based solutions. So in Maradi and Dosso, so Maradi and Dosso are the two areas where the project are being implemented. So what we saw is that women have been massively involved in DELP programs. We saw also that a certain average of 50% to 78% of the of the replantation programs were run by women. It's kind of how women are using or are being paid to recover some land that are bad, try to work on them and make them more practical to replant. So when you saw to the with the pictures, for example, it's more easy to explain it. You see women that are working. In French, we say demi-lune or zai. I don't know, sorry, the name in English. So they try really to restore some soils, some part of the soil in the field, and they try to make it a kind of plot of production. So you go through a hard work doing with women to restore a soil and they grow crops there. So from this, they move from a dry space to a space where they can plant vegetables, trees in some case, and make some incomes from agriculture. So in this, we saw also that agroecological intensification and also agroforestry are really very linked to the women knowledge. When we go through the study, we discover that women have a big knowledge on this agroecology and agroforestry, which is one of the most solution to adapt to the climate change in most of the Niger program. We saw also the reforestry assisted natural regeneration that we call RNA is very also present in the countries. And this is linked to the value chain of tiger net and also the value chain of groundnut, where sometimes the combination of the two make the production more increased. In innovation, we see that women are really very involved and they are open to experiment a lot of options. Next, please. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello. Next, please. Yeah, next, please. So I think the key learning is integration of gender and social inclusion is good. So from the youth, I will go quickly. For the youth, it's the same. So what we see, it's a little bit same with the women, but the mobilization of the youth is very important because in the youth side, we saw that the youth are involved in some organizations that are linked to the global climate change movement, so that youth really show themselves they have a day to mobilize, to show all the activities or the innovation that they are doing in the area of climate change and biodiversity conservation. So the key lesson, it's also how to strengthen youth organization and how to push them to really make a lot of result in their area. And we saw that they have a slogan where they said together they want to build a greener, more resilient future in Niger. So they are very engaged, and a focus can be on them to make changes.
Yes.
The
We
next,
have
please.
1 minute left.
Oh, I see 3 minutes, so let me be quick. So the second, please. The next, please. The next, please. Next slide, please. So here, what I will not go to the what is right. No, the previous, please. The previous, please. Maybe I can begin. So the example we take is a lady who is really a real business case, because she's working on the crops, on the agroecological practice in NUS. The NUS are the neglected or underused species in Niger. Their specificity is that they are very adapted to the climate change. So this lady focus on those kind of crops to really make sure that when she is producing the crop, she is also contributed to fight against climate change, but also she moved from the production to the processing and the marketing of the product that come from species that are how we say, that combat climate change. And now she is on the process of marketing her product and go to the certification to be sure that the product can contribute really make changes from herself and from her incomes. This figure that you see at the first level is really how we can move from a dry soil to a soil which is covered with crops. And it's really to show how when we take account climate change and biodiversity, we can move from subsistence to profit. And in the way of tackling climate change. The second one, which is linked to the business case of the woman, is really to see also how from a production we can go to the process marketing and position ourselves on a kind of a value chain which is very inclusive. So this is a business case that we can discuss later. So because I don't have time to to finish, maybe I can stay there and all the question can come later.
Yes.
So
Think we will have
yeah,
some time or you yeah we will have some time
okay,
in the Q&A to elaborate
okay,
a bit
perfect,
on
perfect.
the last
I
subject.
missed just 2 slides, so it's okay.
Okay. So let me see if there's any question. Please raise your hand if you have any question. If not, I also have a question.
Mhm.
So, how is it that the stakeholders working on the climate change to systematically integrate gender at all levels in their activities? How is this organized? Can you explain a bit more about how this system works?
So in Niger, uh, so the system is on two level. One level is really that in the system and in the strategies, everything is clear. So there is an organization which is called the CNDD, which is really the focal point of all the climate change issues from Niger to the global world and linked to the COP, but sometimes they are very good in defining, drawing strategies and laws to tackle climate change and to include gender and youth. But the challenge is when it becomes to the implementation. When we come to the implementation, then we see a lot of overlap. And the most overlap is how the rural communities, so the base which really tackle every day with the climate change, are not very well linked to the global level, which is the level of strategies. So there is overlap there, and also there is overlap in sharing or access to information and resources to really implement solutions that are really good to tackle climate change. So it's difficult. So if we want to make change, it's really to make sure that all the actors are around the table. And the last one that I can add, it's really very important to have tools to be sure that gender, youth are being taken in account. In our studies, what we discover is really gender is an issue. And sometimes when we refer to gender, we just talk about numbers, 50%, 5%. But when it comes to show the impact or the change, is difficult. So we discover in the studies that the tool that we were using, it's the gender and social inclusion tool. It's a kind of audit which is made with all the stakeholders to see how gender can be an issue. It become easy because we can see the link, the roles, the needs with everyone. And together we can make a kind of chain where each actor play his role, each actor have access to the information or the resources and the knowledge
Yeah.
needed to make the change together.
Okay, thank you. So getting people around the table and having the social tools to monitor the the women's inclusivity. Okay, we have one more question, and then Arun and Eric, I would like to ask you to ask your question in the Q&A at the end of the whole webinar. So, Alina, can you open your mic?
Hello, I have a question. My first is it's two questions, but both are quite quick. My first question is, I saw in the first pictures of the last slide that you have like very barren land, there's dry land. How do you water the crops? Like, how do you make sure that you have enough water for the crops? Because it's an issue if you have very low quality land that you want to bring into the system that you need to water a lot at the beginning. What do you do?
So if I understand, it's the lack of water, how we tackle it. Is this right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so the question, how we tackle, so the crops that are produced, they are produced also linked to their needs on water or not. So in the specific areas where there is water, the selection of the crops is also linked to the availability of the water. When we don't have water and we try to restore soils, it's the kind of agriculture system which is called Zai or demi-lune, or it's a specific things, and the demi-lune that we made, it's restored from water and also biofertilizer to be sure that the land that we restore is has enough fertility to be able for crop production. This is one aspect. The second one is also, I talk about crops that are naturally adapt to the climate change. So we are in the dry area in Niger. There are crops that are really very resistant to the water. They don't need a lot of water. So in the selection of the crops that we put in the plots that have been restored, the selection of the type of crops is also very important. So a focus is made there to be sure that the crops that are there will how we say grow well with the water that is available.
I hope
don't
this
know.
answers your question, Alina. We
Yeah.
have to go to the next presenter.
Mhm.
So for the next
You have
presentation,
another. Mhm.
for the next presentation, we have Hal from Woord en Daad and Abraham of Abraham. Sorry, please open up your mic.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the floor. And again, good morning to everyone. So we are going to share our experience of Agri-Job Booster Chat with all of you. I think it will go quickly. And feel free if you have questions, and we will try to answer back. Next slide, please. Slide. Yeah, as you can see on the slides, we just showed to you the map of Chad. As some of you know, Chad is a country with big opportunity and also big challenges, and because we are one of the poorest country in the world. So we have a big potential in agriculture, and most of our population is young. Statistics said that we have more than 60% of youth in the population, and we have a huge potential of agriculture with an enormous number of agricultural potential. But many of Chadians, as youth or women, they don't have jobs, they are unemployed. So at the same time, Chad is importing a lot of food from neighboring countries, while we have a large area of fertile land that are not being used well. So this is why the Agri Job Booster project comes in. And our goal is to help about 1,000 of youth agripreneurs that can start their businesses in horticulture or in poultry farming. And in return, these businesses can create about 3,000 new jobs in Logon Occidental and in the Tangile region. Slide. So the project the project is supposed to run from 2020 to 2025, but we are discussing, we finalized the discussion to extend it to till 2027. And it is a public-private partnership with about 5 organizations. And one of that is the lead of the consortium with another which is the National Agency of Rural Development. We have Job Booster Enterprise, which is a private company in Chad, Crypto, which is a research center specialized in water development. And we also have NBO, which is a local startup that is working in agribusiness and focus on the market development. So to create change, the Agri Job Booster project focus on 5 key areas. The first one is developing a sustainable and circular production. We are trying to train youth to develop eco-friendly farming method so they can at the same time protect environment and increase their productivity. We support them in their agribusinesses growth, so they can create also business based on the training on business development that they are receiving. One of the area of AgriJob Booster is also connecting supply and demand, so to ensure that farmer can find reliable market where they can sell their product, and also creating jobs and like wage employment and entrepreneurship employment. So at the end, the project aims to increase incomes of the farmers so they can be economically sustainable or independent. Next slide. So yeah, please, you can come back. Before going to the gender, AgriJob Booster focus on youth as I explained it, and also on gender inclusion. And the third area of intervention is like climate and agroecology. So talking about youth again, as I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, is that we have a number of about 70% of youth in the country, but many of them is struggling to find job or to start their own businesses. So AgriJob Booster is very focused on this target to make sure that they can develop their business. And yeah, it is the target between the age of 15 to 25 year old people, including women and youth in the rural area. So above this, we ensure that they can receive the right skills, have the right tools, and also opportunities to build a better future for themselves and their community. Next slide. Talking about the gender, the AgriJob Booster is focused also on the gender. As you can see this picture with women. We developed it before the implementation of the project on the field. We work with local organization like CELIAF. CELIAF is a kind of big organization that unites most of women organization in Chad. So we developed the gender strategy, and our gender strategy focus on the five points, like making sure that women can participate in the decision. So we create a kind of groups of women that allow them to make valuable their opinion, and they are also included in the decision. So some of these women can be in the board of the group of cooperative. They have also equal access to training and job. So in our gender strategy, we ensure that at least 40% of our target are women, at least. Sometimes we can go above. There is some site that are about 100% of women. And the third point is that through our gender strategy, we make sure to build the skills of women and also provide to them coaching and finance of tools so they can develop maybe strategy to be financially independent. And we also ensure through the gender strategy to create an inclusive work environment for women so they have equal access to land and also resources, because in Chad, it is not simply for women to access land. So through the agri-job booster, we make like advocacy. So even women, they can access land. So at the end, our gender strategy can also help in creating impact on community, because by boosting women in their economic development, we also improve like social conditions in the community that they are part of. I think next slide is also some image from women that are participating to the poultry farming training. So they can also, this is a group composed of 100% of women, and they participate in this training so they can develop sustainable poultry farming enterprises, so they sell it and have incomes. Thank you. I will pass the floor to Abraham for the slide talking about the climate. Abraham?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
And next slide, please. So as Hal mentioned, climate and let's say sustainable agriculture are also important part of this project. It's not specifically focused on that, but they are really key with cross-cutting themes. So related to climate, I think what is very important, and we try to make it visual as well, but I'll try to tell something about our strategy. As an organization, we have developed or customized a certain climate risk assessment tool that we have also run in this context of Agri-Job Booster Chat, where we try to analyze as the name says, the climate risks and opportunities in a certain area or program. And with many different stakeholders, we have done a workshop to identify these risks, and it includes looking at the risks, but also vulnerable groups, and making an action plan. So some really important risks. Well, one of them you can clearly see is the risk of increased flooding through climate variability. You can see an example from last year where a lot of crops and even cattle were lost. But also sites can be flooded, but also routes to horti sites can be flooded. So then the access to markets is broken. That's a very clear risk that was identified. Another one is about the increased tension between pastoralist groups and the sedentary horti farmers, because changes in the seasons in the climate can drive them to change patterns in time and space and bring them closer together. And we notice, especially since the horti is in the dry season, there's a lot of yellow, but the horti fields are nice and green, so they're very attractive to cattle. So that's a tension that we see arising also due to the climate change. And also for the poultry aspect, the increase of heat and hot days, especially in the coming period, it will be very hot, and this has a risk on the viability of the poultry and things like that. So to tackle this, we have defined a number of actions related to this. Firstly, starting with the selection of the sites and the fields, looking at their susceptibility to flooding, but also if roots are susceptible for flooding, choosing crops that are easy to conservate, to keep a while when the market is not accessible. Looking at the role of shade and shade trees related to the poultry farming, and for the dry periods also focusing on irrigation methods. Well, there's more details to tell, but I think also looking at time, it's good to move on. So next slide, please. Yeah, this is specifically on the irrigation aspect, where we're working together with KIP, a local Chadian company, to get year-round access to irrigation water and also be less vulnerable to let's say, dry periods. Well, that also met challenges during the project implementation because of the irrigation systems, their performance. But this is something that we really did a lot of experience in these first years of Agri-Job Booster. Yeah, I want to move on to the next, please. Then looking at the production, the agri-horticultural production itself, and well, we call it agro-ecology or sustainable production. We really try to promote those techniques in the program. Here you see some examples of intercropping, but also soil coverage with the fresh material, or even with dry leaves to keep the soil alive and to conserve water. Next slide, please. All the youth and the training that Hal already mentioned includes a training on compost production, but also biofertilizers and biopesticides with local materials and through local organizations. So you see some examples here in the pictures. Next slide, please. And yeah, there are a lot of, let's say, good practices and principles, but we think it's really important also to connect to the local realities. And here you see an example from before and after picture of what I mentioned when the cattle comes by on your field. So that really is an issue, and to align with this need, very practical need from the group. We got the opportunity also together with RVO and IUCN to start an add-on in the program on live hedges to protect these horticultural fields and sites. Next slide, please.
Yes, you have to wrap up in 1 minute, please.
1 minute, okay.
Yeah.
Very quickly. So here you see already some examples. This is Jatropha hedge, which is very interesting for farmers since it's easy to propagate through seeds, and the leaves are not very attractive for animals. Next one, please. I'll go quickly. This is another form with more with a ditch and also Jatropha or a Sichel hedge that are existing. And what we really try to do is to have these agro-ecological principles, but connect them to the realities, which plants are available, which practices are easy to adopt by farmers. So this is what we're still working on, but I think a very interesting part of the add-on as well. So for the last slide, maybe it's good to mention some challenges. We see, as Hal already mentioned, on the youth aspect, that the choice for agriculture through youth is not always evident. They're sometimes more interested to study, to go to the city. And so we see also, for example, the example of some elders in the village, in the community, can be very important as well to motivate youth. So first in the project, we focused a lot on youth, but we also realized the elders also have an important role. On gender, one of the aspects that was coming up also through our gender study was high illiteracy rates among women, which makes access to trainings needs a specific attention, for instance, in local languages, but also extra literacy support. And for now, I would like to keep it at that, I think. Thanks for your attention. And we have one last slide with a nice picture, I guess.
Yes, you can show it. Yes, indeed, a beautiful picture. Thank you, Abram and Hal. So we have 20 minutes left. We will have some time for some questions, specifically for this presentation. Afterwards, a little poll, and then an overall Q&A for all the presenters. So are there specific questions for the last presentation? Let's see the raised hands. Alina?
I have a question. When the youth goes to the city to study, maybe some of the things they study are beneficial to your program. So have you made any effort to integrate them back into the program so that they can continue the program once you may have moved on?
Thanks for that question, Alina. I don't know how if you want to go into that or.
Yeah, I didn't understand the question very well, so maybe if you can explain it to me, I will try to respond.
Yeah. So the question I think was we mentioned shortly that some of the youth have an ambition to study or are studying in the city rather than maybe having the ambition to become a farmer.
Yeah.
But the question was like, can we make use also of their knowledge, their ambition, and bring them back in the program to inspire the rest of the work we do?
Yes. Also, some of the studies they had made through in the city may be beneficial to the program. So, for example, if I would be one of the youth and I would go to the city, I would become, a data scientist, a programmer, as I am. And then I would look back to my village. I would be, how can I help you in a program? So what opportunities do you have for such people to give a little bit back to their community when not becoming a farmer? Is there anything they can do to promote your program or something like that?
Yes, thank you for this question. I will try to respond. Generally, in Chad, people that went to school, it is for them at least very bizarre to come back and like embrace the farming life. So it is a problem of mindset. And we are trying to work at this level, even with the Agri-Job Booster project or with some other organization in the civil society, to sensitize people and encourage them to come back to their community after studying. Even sometimes people that studied agriculture, they are not willing to come back in their community to practice the agriculture. They are preferring going maybe to work for the government, having a nice office and in big cities. So it is a long-term work that we are trying to do, and maybe by giving to this youth some skills and showing to them the opportunities that are existing in this sector of agriculture or agribusiness in general, we can help them to change the way they are understanding the thing or the way they are looking agriculture or agribusiness in general. So we started, and I think there is some changes that we can observe, and everyone or most of the organizations start talking about it and working on at this level. So some of the youth are coming back. Even myself, I am preferring living in the rural area than living in Chad. So there is most youth that are starting to think of coming back and embrace the rural living area to develop agriculture and using modern tools to become more sustainable. So not like the traditional way of doing the agriculture. So this is something we are doing, and it is important to keep doing it, because as we talk about the systemic change, this can take a long time. So yeah, we started, and let's hope in the coming few years we can see concrete results. So Abraham, I don't know if you have something to add on again. Yeah.
Well, yes, thanks. I think it's already quite complete, the systemic picture. I was just thinking about an example that we encountered last time of a young man who was also studying, and during a field visit came to us with a complete bookkeeping of his fields, and whatever he made, and calculations on profitability that he made on his computer at home. So he was someone who had done a study, or who was still studying, but was also integrating in the group. And we saw that he was a very nice example of someone who had some skills also to adapt to more advanced skills like bookkeeping that was in the entrepreneurship training. And that is also an example for the rest of the group who might be struggling to take up these kind of more advanced techniques. So sometimes you see these nice examples that maybe you try to mention as well, Aline, that you see them in practice, but it's a step-by-step thing.
Good. I see there are two more questions, and I think we can launch the poll. And as soon as Max has launched the poll, Zainabu, sorry if I mispronounce your name, can yeah, okay, I think the poll's there. I think you can ask your question.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Are you hearing? Okay. Thank you for Halil for your presentation, which is very interesting. I'm not have the whole presentation, but I understand about your work on agribusiness and on horticulture. To motivate genders to work inside of horticulture. If I'm right, I have just a question, which about land access for gender. If you promoting agricultural sector, horticulture sector, and then in Chad, genders have challenges about access to land or no? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. To respond quickly, yes, this as in the sub-region, like in Central Africa in general, or in Chad in particularly, this is like a big challenge for us to, in the traditional way, to make people understand that women, they have right to access land. So as you know, in our community, most of the time, we consider, and not me, but as in the traditional way, we consider that women, maybe one day they will leave after marriage, go to their maybe for to their husband. So it is not very easy to share with them land. So this is the way that it is not easier in Chad for women to access land. But we started doing this work, not us only, but there is also a work done by Oxfam and diplomatic representation of Netherlands in Chad through the project called Land Scale. So they are also working in this way. And in our level as Agri Job Booster, sometimes it is not easier, but after advocating for this woman, we found out that the traditional leader, they are comprehensive, they can understand, and now they are willing to give land for to women so they can practice. Not it is not land that they can own, but they can just practice the activity of farming for related to the project, or even if for their own, but the land belong to the community. It is not that they are giving the land to women, but they just allow them to work at this land. So we are still working, sensitizing people to understand that it is normal for women to own land. And most people also starting understanding, and sometimes you can receive a kind of testimony like now it is women that are maybe supporting our household, so why not giving them land? So I think people started integrating this fact, but it is very challenging in some communities to let them accept or to give the land to women. But as I said also, it is a kind of mindset. So as the people are in contact with a lot of actors, they are starting changing their minds. So hope that this will help in the future. Any addition? I don't know. Around.
Thank you, Hal. Thank you,
Yeah.
Hal, for your elaborated answer. We have one more question from the chat. Sorry, Alina. Karen can ask her question, and then we will go to the general question to wrap up this session. So, Karen, can you please open up your mic?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you, Hal and Abram, for the amazing presentation. So my name is Karen, and I'm joining in from Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm a youth that is involved in biodiversity and environmental conservation. So my question goes to the both of you. How do you get to integrate and incorporate value addition into the project that you are working on? Thank you.
Go ahead, Abram.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So what we try to do in the project in terms of value addition, it starts with I think the basis is about really the production and the production increase in a sustainable way of the poultry and maraîchage, the horticulture. There is, in that sense, not a lot of activities on, let's say, processing but we also do the linkage to the market. And so to get, let's say, good and stable price for the products, we organize the farmers in groups to have a strong position for, let's say, planning and also negotiation and logistical power. And we also make a connection to, and they're still ongoing, to, let's say, larger market parties like wholesalers, but also restaurants, canteens, who can offer, let's say, a reliable price throughout the year, and have a reliable relation rather than, let's say, the spot market in the village. So that's a way of value addition. And maybe a third thing to mention that we are currently piloting is an application that is tested called FarmerLink, that we already work with in other programs, which allows for farmers and farmer cooperatives and groups to capture data on their productivity, activities, prices, and to really analyze, let's say, their business and their work also as a cooperative to really also add value. So those are some aspects I think that are relevant. And Hal, you may complete.
Yeah, maybe I can also emphasize on the entrepreneurial approach. As most of actors since maybe Independence Day to date, used to call people beneficiaries. So with the Agri Job Booster approach, we are using the entrepreneurial approach. And we call our targets or the youth or women that are in the project clients. So they are supposed to contribute to the implementation of the project. Not just that we are coming with tools or resources, but we also ask them to participate. And this is one of the main difference between the approach of other actors in our area of intervention. So I think today people started understanding, and I think also that some of the actors they started trying to implement this way of working, because most of the time to make the project sustainable, when you come with everything, you give it to the communities. After that, the project is not going after the organization that implement the project is not there, the community this cannot make the project sustainable. So we try to involve them in the resource mobilization so they can own take ownership of this project, and make sure that even after that us work of Word and that or Agri Job Booster, we are not there, they can continue with the project. And for me,
Okay.
it's one of the main added value for this project too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ho. Thank you, Ho. So we have a few minutes left, and I also want to give the mic to the other presenters. Um, Thank you for the elaborated answers, Adam and Hal, and thank you for filling in the poll. Um, so for Raikutu, I probably pronounced it wrongly, but I have a question regarding do you have what are the best practices of women inclusion and youth in from your point of view? So if you would name one or two, what would it be?
Abraham?
If
No?
if not, then Frederike can also open up her
Hello,
mic.
Hello,
hello.
it's
Oh, there's okay,
Yes, hello.
Raikutu. Yeah.
Uh, I'm Adil Zend from Zua, Sudan,
Ah, yes.
East
Welcome. Thank
Darfur
you.
program. I don't have the question, but just I would like to thank the facilitators for their amazing presentations and elucidations of the different aspects of this the workshop, that I think that is much useful, so that and will help us a lot in terms of the integrations and including of the gender women in our programs, that to ensure the sustainability of all others activity being involved. So I think this is a great effort that it deserves appreciated a lot for that, and we look forward to having another session for covering the other topic that not touched by this time. Thank a lot
Thank
for
you.
these opportunities.
Wow, thank you. That's very nice words. I don't even need to wrap up because you already did it for me, and I fully agree. Yeah, thank you everybody for this last for all the presentations and for attending, for introducing yourself. There were also some questions left, and I think if you just save the names from the presenters. Probably you can reach out to them by email if you have any other questions. And there are several webinars left. We have three more. I don't have the exact dates, but you will find it on the IUCN webpage, but also from the reNature webpage, probably also the RVO webpage. And then I would like to thank Ben for organizing this. I don't have to say too much because there are also a lot of nice words already about the presenters. It was very clear. And yeah, thank you for your time. And hopefully, see you the next time.